One of my favorite things that I have learned from Dr. Glenn and Phyllis, just about the human brain and how we function and show up, is all about the disorders of the psyche and how every single one of us is on a spectrum. And that's why they call it a spectrum. And it's just really where we fall on that spectrum. And so today we are going to be talking about how we get knocked off course, what that looks like, what to recognize in regards to disorders of our psyche. So that is where we are going today. Welcome to the Connection Codes podcast. This is the podcast where we break open the emotions that take us from being disconnected to connected in our relationships and in ourselves. I am your host, Tira Wages, and joining me is marriage and family therapist, clinical sexologist, Dr. Glenn Hill, and his incredible wife, Phyllis Hill. Together, they have founded the Connection Codes, which is the guide to human connection. And we're so glad you're here.
Hello, world.
Hi, friends. So this topic comes up a lot, and I think that it's such a big part of our story. And so I feel like we talk about it all the time, but I realize that for a lot of our listeners, it's kind of a new concept. And I love the way you just said it, Tira, that we all are on the spectrum. We really are. And it's a blessing when you figure out what is happening with your psyche. What disorders it? Like, what happens in your day or in a week that can knock you off course? So I really love that. And I love being able to talk about this. I love that you even said with you, babe, because this is such a big part of your story. And so you understand it on a personal level in a huge way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would just say to people, if you haven't taken the Foundations course, just do it. You got to invest in yourself. There's so much power in it. My favorite modules are what we call relationship science, which are several of the bonus modules. And the power of that is I was so dysfunctional for so long. And when I finally learned myself enough to realize that, okay, it's not because I'm broken. It's not because I'm stupid. It's not because I'm bad, which is what I thought for so many years. It's because I get knocked off course. And you just think about whatever. You're sitting at your desk, a ceiling fan falls out of the ceiling and crashes behind you. How are you going to behave in the next 10 seconds? I don't know. You're going to be a weird version of Tira. And if somebody didn't realize that that's what happened, they'd be looking at you going, what is her deal? Does she just randomly start screaming sometimes? Does she just have this body reaction where she jumps out of her chair? What is wrong with her? There's nothing wrong with her. She's human. And she got flooded with fear in that moment because of the external stimuli, and her body reacted to that. Well, if you're living life under those conditions, not falling ceiling fans, but where you're continually under fear, being affected by fear, what's your behavior going to be like? I don't know. I have no idea, but you're going to be a weird version of yourself. So we've probably covered this before, but I'll go over it. That human behavior basically consists, or the human condition basically consists, there's an external stimuli, an emotion fires in the brain to take care of us, to guide us, to protect us. If we process that emotion, we figure out what we need to do next. And we can do that in 10 seconds, 20 seconds. 30 seconds. If we don't process that emotion, it gets hung up, stuck in the system. Our nervous system has gotten dysregulated and is supposed to get back to regulation very quickly. If it doesn't, then the nervous system stays dysregulated. If the nervous system stays dysregulated, at some point the psyche gets disordered. So now there's a ceiling fan in Tira's life falling every 7 to 15 minutes. What's Tira going to be like by the end of that day at work? I have no idea. But she will talk to Wes and she'll be like, I'm out of my mind. I can't take care of my kids this evening. I can't engage. She's just like, her whole nervous system is so out of whack. So when the psyche gets disordered, again, we're always supposed to be getting back to regulation. When we don't, then the psyche gets disordered and we start behaving oddly. Of course, the problem is if the other doesn't know that. So Phyllis and I are watching Tira like, what is her deal? I mean, she is incompetent. She can't remember anything. She can't function properly. Well, we don't realize that there's all these triggers. for her that are dysregulating her nervous system. So now she's on high alert and humans can't live that way and be very functional. So for me, this is so huge. I'm going to talk way too long here.
Yeah, no, I just want to slow it down just a little bit, because you say a lot of words there that kind of go over most people's heads. So you're talking about our psyche. We're talking about, like the way it's clicking. Can you give more, let me explain what I heard you say for regular humans. So if I wake up and I get hit with an intense emotion early in the morning, we'll say fear, and I stuff that down, I ignore it. And then 10 minutes later, I get hit again with another really intense emotion and I ignore it, and again and again. So it could be, my kid punching another kid in the face, a ceiling fan falling out of the ceiling, Wes telling me that he thinks I'm the worst person that lives, like multiple things in a row, getting an email from a client that says they hate our product. Yeah. And I ignore those things. I stuff them. Then by the end of the day, my psyche is like so wadded up that it can't function accurately. Yeah. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay,
then
great.
Wes tries to engage with you. And he's like, I like this woman, but I can't stand being in the same room with her. She's, we use different pejorative words. She's crazy or she's whacked out.
Yeah.
Well, she kind of is. And I don't use those words as descriptors, but Tira's knocked off course, not because she's a bad person. It's because all of these external stimuli have caused emotion that didn't get processed, which keeps her nervous system dysregulated. And now there's no telling how she's going to behave.
I'm so fascinated now at my age, I guess, about the body. I would say with all confidence, the first 40 years of my life, my body did exactly what I needed it to do. And so I didn't tune in. I didn't tune into emotions. Didn't think I had any. For sure, didn't understand them because I didn't even think I had any. I opted out. I thought I could. And now I realize constantly how much unprocessed emotion affects your body.
Yeah.
Like, I was talking with a really dear friend this week, and she had actually went to the dentist because she had this crazy sore in her mouth. And it was painful, and it was like it was affecting the outside of her face, and it was swelling. And she was like, there must be something really wrong going on with, my teeth or something. And so she went to the dentist, and they said, oh, no, it's just a canker sore and it's stress.
Wow.
And it's just always like, does it always get back to that? And of course, stress is one of those words, right? What does that even mean? Well, we know it's unprocessed emotion. Like it's things that are happening, which she had been on a trip and it did not go well. So I'm like, oh, it makes sense that at the end of your trip, you had this reaction that your body kind of has to release it somehow, right? And so that's kind of a side note, but it's a fascinating thing that if we're not tuning in, like you were saying, you start off in the morning, that first thing happens, you stuff it, then the next thing, and you stuff it. But eventually it's got to come out. And so it's like, what in the process, though? At what cost, right? And I think it's the whole psychological disorders. It's like a topic that we all know a little bit about, seems like. And we label people. Like we're really quick to go, oh, he is,
narcissist.
A narcissist. That's a big one right now. That's like more, or, oh, what do people say? I have OCD. Like they know enough to say things, but it's almost like, oh, that's not really how that works. And so I think you're trying to slow it down so we can define it a little better.
Yeah. Yeah. Just so people can grasp it, to be like, how does this actually apply to me? Does my does my psyche actually get disordered? So people can see this actually does happen all the time. And I also, as you're talking, I'm thinking about little kids, because how much of this happens at young ages when they don't have the language, when they don't have the parents that they feel safe with to communicate. And so many of the disorders that we then see when they're in their 20s and their 30s actually started when they were 5, when they were 4, and they had so much happening for them that they couldn't process.
Yeah. Well, and that's the next macro point is that the field of psychology, the first numerous decades, psychological disorders were pathologized, that we labeled people. We said, Tira is a blank, she's bipolar, or she's, narcissist or whatever. And so then it was like they had a name tag on, my name's Tira and I'm blank. And then we're like, well, what do we do with this damaged person, and it's probably been 15 or so years now that we know these don't exist in a category. You either are, you're not, and you hope you're not. They actually exist on a spectrum. So we're all, quote unquote, narcissists. I don't use that language, but we all deal with narcissism. Narcissism is simply being aware of yourself, often at the expense of another. Well, if I ask you to go get me a drink, I'm aware of my need, and I want you to go to the trouble. Now, that's not dysfunctional, and you have the right of refusal. But yeah, you're putting yourself out on my behalf, and I'm asking you to do that. Well, you could actually label that narcissism. It's not at a real high level. So anything that approaches 80 on a scale, 0 to 100, we get nervous about because it's pretty dysfunctional. I've shared before on the podcast and the book and stuff that in 1987, I tested an 84 out of 100 on obsessive compulsive disorder. I was frozen. I could barely get through my day. There weren't enough hours in the day because it would take me an hour to do what most people did in 10 minutes. Take me all day to do what most people did in an hour and a half. So there is a point where it becomes you're frozen, you're overwhelmed, you're dysfunctional. Things like agoraphobia. A person can't even leave their house. Well, all of us have a little bit of tension about leaving the house. Like, did I get my wallet? Well, that's just the your experience in the moment. But it's not an 80. It's probably down here, who knows what, a 5 or an 8 or something. So you're functional, but you are aware of the fear, I would suggest, a very low level of fear of, am I prepared to leave the house? My home is my safe place, hopefully, and I'm going to leave my safe place to go to this thing. And again, people are affected by it on all different levels. If we don't process what's happening for us, then we get disordered and we don't behave well. So I would love for us to shift this culturally so we stop pathologizing humans and say, well, you're damaged, you're broken, you're messed up. And instead be curious, even fascinated to go, what happens for Tira there? I just want to get to know her. She functions very differently than I do. I function very differently than she does. Neither is right or wrong. She experiences whatever about this and I don't. And then I experience something that she doesn't. So neither one of us are good or bad, right or wrong, correct or incorrect. It's just that's what happens. And I wanted to give the illustration, and I'm not using my own bill here. Those of you who know me will understand why. So
his own dollar.
And a client showed me this the other day. I just thought it was brilliant. So for most of us, this is a dollar bill. So for most of us, you do something and somebody's going to pay you $1. If they handed it to you like this,
which is completely wadded up to a small bill.
I suppose there's some percentage of people in our culture that would just put it in their pocket. I think the large majority of people would be like, it's all wadded up. So they would begin to unfold it. They would be obsessed with the idea that it's wadded up, and then they would feel compulsive to undo it. Well, then, at what point are you comfortable with this? Well, for me, I would rather not have this bill. I'd throw it away. If it's 100, I'd go home and iron it. But I don't want this. Now, I think fellows would be like, it's $1. Who cares? There we go. So again, whatever. She's dealing with OCD on a 12 out of 100. Well, she's completely functional. For me, it's affecting my behavior where I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing. And I got other stuff I need to be getting done. And instead, I'm sitting here focused on this. I'm like, hey, babe, where's the ironing board? I think I could probably iron this. And Phyllis is like, wait, what, babe? We're trying to get some stuff done here. I'm like, yeah, but look at that. The corners are all, oh my goodness. And it's just so overwhelming for me. I'm obsessed with it. It's a pain experience. And even literally right this minute, I look at this, that's painful for me. Well, okay, we'll play the game. So 0 to 100, I mean, this is probably painful, I don't know, 80 or 90 for me. It's like, that's just, I I literally could not carry this with me. I would give this away to anybody on the
Wow.
street. So 0 to 100, how much pain is that for you?
0.
Oof. You're one of those people. What
For me,
about you?
probably about an 18.
Okay. But if it was wadded up in a ball, what pain level would it be for you?
Wow. I mean, maybe a 1 or 2 because when you did that just a minute ago, I don't feel it in my body at all as pain.
Wow.
It's almost just like what I thought of is a child did it, like to make a ball. So I would just pick it up and I would stick it in my pocket as a ball because I wouldn't.
You
I wouldn't take the time.
joy in it, just seeing it because you think of a kid.
I don't know that it would have necessarily be joy because I know that's not the way it should be and it's not practical. If we had all of our money balled up, it wouldn't fit in my purse very well.
Your purse is close to that. I mean, let's be
well, there is some truth in that. I don't think any of my bills are wadded
I'm not allowed to go through her purse
up like a little ball, but they are all different.
If she says to me, can you hand me a pen? And this is a perfect example of OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. It's a disorder. If she says, hey, babe, hand me a pen out of my purse, I open her purse. The bills they're crooked. They're folded over. You've
Some
got
are folded.
ones with 5s, but they're not even like together. There's a 20 here, and there's another 20 in another part of her purse. And immediately I'm thinking, well, I'm just going to dump this thing out and start over. And Phyllis is like, no, I just need a pen. Well, this is going to be a 10 minutes. And again, it's amazing to me that can push me to tears, even visualizing that, because it's going to take me 10 to 15 minutes to get her a pen. I think if Tira was doing it, it would take you 8 seconds.
Yeah.
So, and again, you start doing the math. If Tira can do it in 8 seconds and it takes me 10 minutes, what's my day going to look like? I can barely function. I don't have enough time to be functional.
Well, back in our early marriage, because I think, first of all, you did not have connection codes. So you didn't have the tools. You didn't know about emotion. You didn't know what was happening to you. And so the way you always presented it was that this was the right way and the best way to do things. Yeah. And so like my purse was the wrong way. Like if you want to be a successful adult, you keep your purse organized and you keep, all your bills perfect. And so there was this standard that was exhausting for you and for me, like for both of us. But I think about that, for those of you listening, that this may be part of your story or someone close to you's story that, like I would say, babe, can you, whatever, in the kitchen. It was always, my memories are of the kitchen. Like, babe, can you set the table? Sure. And he would open the cupboard and he would, I'm sure, experience pain, not say it. And then he would set the table, but first of all, it had to be perfect. So then it was like this whole thing of first the table had to be wiped off. Then everything had to be set perfectly. But then also the cupboard would bother him. So he would take everything out of the cupboard and wipe down the cupboard and put everything back up there. And so it was so unworkable. And so I got to the point where I just asked less and less for support because it was too time consuming for him. And then also, I don't know that you verbalized it, but I felt the disapproval. Like my cupboards were not perfect. Yeah. And so that is disgusting. And how can you live this way? And I would say there's joking now. It definitely, if I feel hurt, I tell you. Yeah. But like sometimes we have a big walk-in closet and we're very orderly people. Like, I mean, I would say there's never clothes on the floor in our closet. I'd be curious, out of all you listeners, how many can say that? Like, there's never clothes on the floor.
And let me interject that Phyllis is incredibly organized, but she doesn't deal with OCD on a dysfunctional level.
And so there's no comparison.
So from where I sit, I'm just like, oh my gosh, this little thing is crooked.
Yeah.
The universe is out of order. Phyllis is like, we're functional here. Our babies are alive. Yeah. Everybody's healthy. It's a good day. And Glenn is overwhelmed because of whatever. Literally, the bowls are not. A lot of you have bowls that stack, but they don't stack. What's those? Corel? Corel just stack perfectly. I love those. But so many bowls, like, well, they're crooked. Well, that's just overwhelming for me.
Well, but going back to our closet, It's like Glenn's hangers are all the same color and they're 1 inch apart perfectly. And then you look at my side, everything's hung up. But I have all different colors of hangers. Don't have any system to my hangers. Doesn't matter. They're not they're not inches apart. They're not nothing. Like, but all my stuff's hung up and it's not a trashed closet. Like, it's a very organized closet, but there's no comparison. So to live with someone whose standard is his, then it's like I have spent a lifetime with you, 46 years, 42 married, of just everything I do is not ever correct or right. And we are so aware of this now. Like, Glenn will still, I would say at times, tease me about my side of the closet. And we laugh. If I ever feel, though, hurt or pain in it, I just tell him.
We both recognize now just how knocked off.
Oh, yeah.
When we travel a ton. And so we go to whatever hotel room, well, especially Airbnbs. I open the kitchen cabinets and the glasses are not all the same and lined up perfectly. And again, we dance really well together, but I'll open the cabinet and I'll be like, how do people live like this? I mean, baby, I don't know that we can stay here. And I immediately redo all the cabinets. Well, we're on vacation. Hopefully we've got the time. But if we don't have the time, now what's Glenn going to do? Because Glenn's feeling all this pain. The nervous system is dysregulated. And again, I'm now, as a connection coder, I'm able to process that. But for so many years, I didn't know how to do that. And so now I'm just completely out of whack. And of course, she doesn't know it. She's like, why is he in a foul mood? That's because I'm in pain.
Okay, so to slow it down a little bit, for you, you just said the word pain. Like, it's a pain experience in your body when all of these things are out of order, correct?
Yeah, and so again, for so many years, which feels so much guilt that I missed on this so badly with you for so long, I would say they were wrong. You know, if these glass, if there's one random glass in the whole set, you know, whatever, some of the previous guests left a glass, I don't know what to do. I mean, I feel like I should throw it in the trash because it's just wrong, quote unquote, wrong. But in reality, it doesn't matter. So you have one extra random glass. What difference does it make? Well, it's just all internal for me. And I'm a smart guy. I recognize it doesn't matter, but the emotion of it, you know, ends up mattering for me.
So, but I know at times it's a fear experience. So can you explain, like, when it's pain or then when it's fear?
No.
It just is. It just is,
I mean,
right?
It is. It doesn't make any sense.
Because I know with cracks, that's fear.
Yeah.
More than pain. But then I guess there's pain in it too. The cracks on a,
sidewalk.
Are huge fear things. But and I know we've done other episodes. I know we did one podcast just on narcissism, like, to realize the humanness of it, to realize the struggle in it.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of us who have a lot of shame around these things. And so we want to hide that part of us, which is a very lonely experience and then very damaging if you're hiding it and for the people closest to you. And the beauty of being able to figure out what's happening and to process the emotion behind it, I think is so huge. I know we have a lot of musician friends and they talk about when they get on stage, like you see them from the audience and you're just like, oh, it's my favorite artist. They're amazing. I love their voice. I love their music. But a lot of them deal with social anxieties. They deal with just stage fright.
Yeah.
And for them, to realize, to process all that emotion. Like we were working with one musician and we said to her, have some people on stage with you that you feel safe with, that you can in the moment turn to them when you're getting so flooded and so dysregulated, just say fear. Get that out of your body by turning to someone and say, oh, I'm getting flooded with fear. And they, teach them how to ooh you well. Like they don't need to fix anything. They don't need to lecture. They don't need to tell you you're the best person on the, whatever. Hear the fear because it's real. It is so real and it becomes so paralyzing. There's a lot of this, and that anxiety, that fear that you don't really know what's happening at times. And I think about that with children. Like, you've shared some heart-wrenching stories of, I think it was with one of yours, putting on clothes, and not realizing it wasn't an obedience or disobedience issue.
Yes.
It was
pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a disorder of the psyche.
Yes, it was. It was anxiety. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like none of the others, they were all putting on their clothes just fine. So it's like, just get in line, just put on your clothes, leave that shirt on or leave that jacket on.
Yeah. And my reaction to that child was only making it worse at the time. Again, this was pre-connection codes. And so I'm viewing it as a obedience.
Right.
And I mean, I can remember holding clothes on them. I'm like, you picked this out. You chose this shirt. Why will you not put it on now? School started so early where we moved from. I'm like, we are going to be late. I would hold the clothes on them, yelling at them, again, pre-connection codes, and then get them to the door. Last kid to run through the school. The teacher's holding the door open for them, even though they're late. And then I'm like, have a great day. And I've just sent my kid with a psyche, like a disorder of the psyche, into that school, deep anxiety from home because I've been yelling at them all morning because I just need to get them in the door. Then they went into school where they felt unsafe all day because when they were 4, they had an intruder drill and that you couldn't convince them that there was not bad guys in their school. And the toilet was too loud. They wouldn't pee all day at school because the toilet was too loud. And then the lunchroom was too loud. And so then I'm getting this child back at 3 p.m, completely disordered, completely. And then they're losing their mind all night. And I just think I have a bad kid.
Right.
And now instilling these tools and being able to process and put words to those emotions, like that child has asked me to do a testimonial video for us. I have fear to do that because I want to protect them in their face with the world and I'll protect them. But like, they're like, no, this has changed my life. Can I do a video? Like, what questions would you ask me?
Wow.
And they are so functional now. We go shopping at the beginning of school. I'm like, you picked that shirt out? You would have, they're wearing jeans now, which I never thought my child would wear jeans. And now they can wear jeans because they're processing.
Yeah.
And so for me and seeing that experience and hearing about yours, Glenn, I think about kids when we're talking about disorders of the psyche.
Yes.
And I've said it for years, even before knowing this. If we want to fix the homelessness issue, we got to start with 5-year-olds. That is the result of what happened to them when they were 5. If we want to end wars, we've got to start with 5-year-olds because their psyches are they're living in pain. And then the reaction.
And in this culture, at least, and I think there's lots of cultures this is true for, and I just have to speak up for Tira because you're an amazing mom. You love your kids. None of that was from a bad heart. Tira is giving it her best shot. And she's like, I have to get my little one to school. Keep the frickin' shirt on your body. So it's not from a bad heart, bad intention, bad anything. But Tira doesn't realize that, that kid's nerve endings are going crazy. And we don't have access to other people's nerve endings. So for that child to be able to say, Mom, this is really painful. I feel a lot of pain in this. This is just uncomfortable. Changes the whole dynamic. And as you say, because, and again, this is the way I grew up and this is the way I dealt with my children predominantly, way pre-connection codes for us. You need to obey. And so then if I was able, my more compliant kids, I was able to force them to obey. And I was like, well, that kid's better than this kid over here because this kid over here continues to honor their pain, their own pain. I didn't know that. So I think I'm doing good with this kid because this kid yields to me, just crumbles and stops expressing need. I'm like, we did it. No, it's the opposite. That is this child over here that continued to honor their own pain and recognize it. And yes, there are times we have to do painful things we don't enjoy. I get that. But in general, what we've done in our culture is that the child is just completely ignored. And we teach this kid, stop tuning into yourself.
Yes.
Stop it. So now you have pick a number of 15, 18, 20, 22, 25-year-old who's completely clueless about their own experience. I'm sitting beside one. And I griped and complained more, but the result kind of ended up the same. Neither one of us, actually knew what to do with all this emotion. I looked more emotional, but I was completely unhealthy and dysfunctional in it. So we're raising, generations of people that don't actually tune into themselves at all and have learned to ignore themselves.
Yeah, so for me, it's like we're raising kids that ignore themselves. And the result of that often is high levels of OCD, high levels of anxiety, high levels of like bodily harm, eating disorders, all of these things, because we taught them, stuff it. All that pain is going to keep firing for you, but you need to ignore it. And then it becomes too much where they need to control. Like that's how they get back in control, is at least my assumption. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, I was watching this kid, and she would have been on the track to experience, I don't know what could have happened down the road with her based on the high level of where she was at that time. And now I can partner with her. Now we'll go shopping and she's like, this tag. And I can like either put my hand down in the back of her shirt to help hide the tag just for a few minutes to try something on, or I can maneuver it. Like I can ooh her through it. Like, ooh, I get that. That's painful. Just 1 minute. But I can recognize her pain. I can ooh her through instead of saying, stop feeling that. And that changes everything.
Which is such a bizarre thing. And again, I did it so many times with my kids. We just say, stop it. Okay, Mom, Dad, you said, I'm sick. You said, stop it. Could you cue me in on how I'm supposed to stop this? I didn't start it. I wasn't trying to experience pain. I wasn't trying to experience fear. Now what do I do? And again, as parents, we're bigger than them. So we're just like, you just stop it right now. So eventually they learn to. They stop existing, basically. They stop tuning into themselves.
I know that as a society, we've done a really poor job with this. And I think as parents, and maybe the younger generation is doing this a little better, but there's been such a almost fear. Oh my word. What if my child deals with autism? What if my child deals with, all the things, right? We're so afraid of it that we don't want to even learn about it or consider it.
Yeah.
I believe your tendencies were very evident early in your life. And yet I don't feel like anyone, whether it was a teacher or, someone from church or your family members, ever addressed the tendencies for this obsessive compulsive disorder. And I sure didn't know anything about it. So I didn't recognize all the signs. And I think, man, if you'd have gotten a clue early on in life, how much that would have helped you to, because you talk about how at that time in the late 80s, you were so frozen. And at this point, we were married. We had 2 children, and he was the sole breadwinner. So to not function well made life really hard. And, and I think, wow, if we had just known, so he could have processed his emotion. He could have processed all the pain, the fear. I could have been there for him. I was trying by keeping everything perfect, which that's not healthy. That's not the solution.
It is so unmanageable for you, especially once you have babies, because you're just trying to keep up, keep them alive.
Yeah. So it was very unhealthy. And, for those that are listening, I think we just want to always kind of come back to this topic. We get a lot of questions about it for sure. Almost like that curiosity. Be curious about yourself. Be curious about the people closest to you. Be curious about your children. Try to figure out what's happening with them. Because I love that about what you're sharing just so vulnerably. And we were incredibly blessed with one of our children that the school counselor actually called us in and said, really noticed some tendencies here. And he was 5. And he said, your child is dealing with high levels of anxiety disorder. Well, that made so much sense. so much sense in all the things we'd seen, but we thought he was just misbehaving.
Yeah.
So back in those days, I feel a lot ashamed to say we were definitely in a society, in a group of friends, in a church that said, spank him more, spank him harder, and almost like beat this out of him. And that just added to the anxiety disorder.
Yeah.
Like we were doing the opposite of what that child needed. And our school counselor was so precious and kind, not judgmental, but he just said, here's some tips. And the tips were so simple.
Yeah.
Like, this is a kid that needs a 5-minute warning. 5 minutes, we're going to put our shoes on. In 5 minutes, we're going to get in the car. In 5 minutes, we're going to start getting ready for bed. That allowed his psyche to stay more calm.
Yeah.
And then bedtime routine, he said, it's really important that he has consistency. He needs routine, even though he fights it. He's the least routine one, but he needs it. And it was like, oh my word, our lifestyle was the opposite of all that. And we for sure were never giving him 5 minutes. It was always right now, do it, you know?
Yeah.
And it just caused his anxiety levels to be so high. And at that time, we did not know emotions. We did not know the connection codes. So we didn't know how to connect with him and get him to process what was happening. But just us as parents knowing that, oh, our child has an anxiety disorder. But even that labeling, I don't know that we ever shared that with anyone back then.
Well, I remember, and again, pre-connection codes, just feeling so much shame that, oh my gosh, he's not religious enough. He's not church enough. And by definition, that means we're not either. We're not teaching our child not to have an anxiety disorder. It just had it just sounded so ungodly, it just sounded so unspiritual. And so it was very much a hush-hush.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, my other takeaway that I keep thinking about is you mentioned earlier just the judgment that we place on it. And we had a situation in our neighborhood, which I have fear in sharing because this is the second neighborhood situation that I've shared on the podcast recently. And we love where we live, just to be super clear. But just a few houses down, last Tuesday night, there's an older teenage boy. I imagine he's about 17. And he had a manic episode and was trying to kill his mom, with a baseball bat, and was going after her with a baseball bat. And she was able to call the police. He ended up in another neighbor's yard. She was obviously terrified. She had her 2-year-old in the back. And the police got here and he went into a zone where he was yelling things that didn't make sense, trying to bang his head into the police car, trying to harm himself. And of course, a lot of the neighbors there's so much judgment on him, so much judgment on him. And I just ache because his psyche is so disordered that he can't function.
Right.
And it is better for him to go, the alternative is we'll just arrest him. We'll just throw him in a cell by himself. He may hurt if there's somebody else in there, we'll just lock him up.
Yeah.
This is the best alternative for this guy who I have no idea what his lived experience is.
Wow.
And it's just so incredibly painful that that's our solution as a society.
Yeah.
And that we are raising the next generation. What we experience with anxiety, my generation, and what my kids are going to experience, very different. Very different.
Yeah.
Between social media and safety at school and all of these pressures that they're under that I never lived in, it's really scary for me to think about the help and the support that they're getting. And so for me, these tools are not just needed, they're imperative.
Yeah.
To these kids.
Right. And let me just inject as a plug that's why every police department, school, church, business, everything, everywhere needs the connection codes. It's the human condition. This is not a personality profile. It's not a neat idea. It's not a theory. This is the human condition. It's true for every human on the planet. So just like with that, And, I don't know this whole scenario. I've heard of similar ones. It's been really fascinating as we get emails from people where the police are connection coders and they're able to say, they're able to ooh the person. And so it doesn't escalate. It de-escalates. And they're able to go, hey, buddy, help me get what I'm missing here. I feel like I'm missing something. What's happening for you? I notice you want to bang your head on the squad car. So I'm just missing that part. Help me get it. And it's such an incredible, gentle, open invitation for this teenage guy and whoever it is to be able to process through what's leading to that. And again, this kid's psyche has come gonzo. I mean, he's, because I don't know the situation, this guy doesn't want to kill his mother. But in that moment, what version of him is he going to be? I don't know.
Yeah.
He's going to be a funky version of himself, but it's because of what happened before and before and before. It's not that he got up that morning and said, what would be an interesting thing to do today? I know, I'll do. No, nobody does that. It's a whole bunch of things that added up to that. And I get it. There are situations, stopgap measures where you just have to stop the situation. But how we handle it after that is the really, really sad point that we pathologize humans. We go, well, that's just a bad person.
Yeah.
So, whatever. We lock them up or we put them in a cell and don't realize, no, this is just a human. And something funky happened that knocked him off course. Maybe knocked him off course 986 times. And now he ended up in this horrible, horrible scenario that equaled this terrible manifestation. And that's what we're looking at and judging as opposed to going, whoa, something funky happened before that.
Well, I go back to just when our child was 5 and the school counselor being so helpful. I remember, and obviously this was a very long time ago, so it still is such a vivid memory for me. But, he had several things at school that just happened. Like one time, it was the very first week of school, he had an older sibling that was in the same school. And it was very clear he's supposed to get on the bus with his sister. And she was a little bit late.
And he knew the number of the bus.
So, and his teacher got him to the bus and he's supposed to get on, but she wasn't there. And so he refused to get on. So he was like a crazy man and ended up laying down in front of the bus, like as in, just some crazy stuff.
So the bus can't go.
And it got the whole, everybody of course sees it. And then you feel so much judgment that your child just went crazy. And as soon as his sister showed up, he got up, held her hand and got on the bus. But of course we got the call.
In the meantime, we've been called.
Yeah. And then of course getting with the school counselor, and he said that think about a squirrel, how cute they are when you see them in your backyard and they're so fun and they jump from tree to tree. He said, have you ever seen a squirrel in a sports stadium when they get cornered? And of course I haven't. They said they will attack you. And that is not a pretty picture. They become like this vicious animal if they are cornered in a stadium. And then I pictured our son like, oh my word, that is what happens for him.
Yeah.
And, even back then, like I remember he being in a Sunday school class or, nursery. I don't know what all it was called back then. But we would get, your child's not, they had just hit the teacher. They hit the, person in charge like crazy, like lost it. And I'm thinking, I was always so embarrassed. I felt so much shame.
Yeah.
Like my child is the crazy one. But to realize, oh, it's that squirrel that got cornered.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the adult had done, but it was probably one of those where it was a demand and an immediate, like, you better obey me. And my child being hit with that anxiety of, I don't even know you. And where am I? And where are my parents? And I don't feel safe here. And then that anxiety just going higher and higher. And so there's so much pain around that when you don't understand what's happening with your children. And if you put it in the category of obedience or disobedience, and you only get it at that level, we're missing it big time to understand. And I think about your neighbor, like I just think about that. And I know it's different when you're 17 and you grab a baseball bat, right?
Yeah.
Where I think about my little 5-year-old who is hitting people. But then I think about that squirrel and I'm like, oh my word. It just breaks my heart that my 5-year-old felt that unsafe and had that much fear that he would attack anyone.
Okay, so I want to break that down, and you can pick 1,000 scenarios, a billion scenarios. But so this little guy is 5 years old. He's headed to the bus to get on the bus, and they changed the bus. It was the wrong number. That's a pain experience for him, probably a fear experience, because he's getting on the wrong bus. He's probably going to end up across town somewhere. I mean, who knows where his thoughts go. Then his sister's not there, so there's tons of loneliness, just the pain of, my big sister's not here to be with me. He's probably felt fear in that. It's like, where did she go? Where is she? Is she going to be? Because he didn't know, did she die? Wow. He has no idea what happened for her, and we're speculating here, so who knows? But so he's so dysregulated. These emotions are firing in his brain. Of course, way pre-connection goes for all of us. His nervous system gets so dysregulated, it stays dysregulated because the adults in the scenario are doing what they think is the right thing, trying to get this kid, it's like herding cats, trying to get this kid on the bus. He's not having it, because if he gets on this bus, he'll probably never see his family again, or who knows? I mean, there's no telling what his thoughts are based on the unprocessed emotion. So then he goes berserk. And, you call that, manic depression, bipolar, if you want, whatever, but he's out of his mind. So people are looking at this little guy's behavior and it's like, well, he has a psychological disorder. He is a damaged kid. He's just a bad kid. Well, I get it. You're observing this behavior, and because none of the other kids are doing this. Right. All the other kids are obedient. All the other kids are compliant. All the other kids are doing what they're, quote unquote, supposed to be doing. And this kid's out of control, so I guess we just need to put him in an institution. Yeah. Or at least med him up. I remember back in the day, that we were told that so many times, he needs to be on medication. And our son to this day thanks us for not doing that. Yeah. But we felt so much pressure. A lot of people were like, he needs meds, he needs meds, he needs meds. And we never did. I don't know how we had it within us not to. Yeah. But he didn't need meds. He needed to be able to process the emotions of what was happening for him.
Well, and we label kids good and bad. You have good kids, or your kids are bad. And that's where it starts. And so when I think about my 17-year-old neighbor, it is different for a 17-year-old to have a bat in his hand. But I think about him at 5.
Right.
I don't view him at 17. Right. I view the 5-year-old him. When I think about terrorist organizations, I don't think about, I think about what happened to them when they were 5.
Yes.
What was their lived experience that led them to where they're at today? When I see homeless people, what happened to them when they were 5? And that is where we have to start if we actually want to see generations shift. If we want to see something different happen, 40 years from now, than what we're experiencing today as far as the mental health crisis that we as a world, and especially as an American country, are experiencing. We have to start early and stop ignoring what these kids are experiencing and help them learn about emotional regulation.
We almost, I don't want to say 100% of anything, but we almost exclusively treat symptoms.
Yes.
We're simply treating symptoms, again, 1,000, a million times. And they were like, this is so weird that we keep treating the symptom and it doesn't solve the problem. No, it never will.
I know we should have done the core emotion wheel early in this episode, and we have just jumped right in. But I think about that, and I know we're about to do it. But oh my goodness, if you're listening and you're a school teacher or a school counselor, or you in any way have effect on people, you've got to get the core emotion wheel, into the hands of the community you're in. And it's a free download from our website. We don't sell this. So we're not trying to sell you something that's going to cost money. It's
and school systems all over the world are doing this now.
We got to get it in every school system because kids need to learn this. And we would love to get it in every home. We'd love to get it everywhere. So if you're like, I teach a Sunday school class, I could teach them the core emotion wheel. Yes, you can. Or if you're a school teacher, or if you are a police officer, this tool alone helps people beyond your belief. I love it when we have guests on our podcast and we get them to do it for the first time. I love how amazed they are. Wow, I feel a load's been lifted. I feel a shift in my body. It's it's that powerful. Yeah. We know that you talk about mental health crisis, this simple tool is such a beginning. Yeah. It's such a powerful tool. It's what is happening with me? Oh, it's just tons and tons of anger or fear or Like, I would love to know from your neighbor, your 17-year-old neighbor, like, what's happening with you?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I would just love to hear him do the wheel
Yeah.
and to hear
Yeah.
all of that come out of his body, because it's got to come out somehow, whether it's with a baseball bat or with words.
Yeah, it's going to come out.
Yeah.
And I do have to say, for our son Sky, who we just adore, and I just admire him so much, we've done multiple podcasts with him and Meg. I remember the first one we did, and I don't remember what we were talking about. Said something about, a more difficult child, and Sky interrupted you and said, no, Mom, a passionate child. and he is. He's because our firstborn was so compliant, which, and Echo says, compliant children usually are miserable adults. And as a culture, we're just like, oh, we love compliant children.
Yeah.
Compliant children are so good. They're a godsend. They're angels. And I remember being told in our religious setting that, our son had demons.
Yeah.
And of course, as parents, we're just like, we don't do, I don't know, does he? What do we do? I mean, how do you deal with this? And I just love that mentality. Go, okay, I have a passionate child. Yeah. And this passionate child looks differently than this one that's not as intense. Okay, that's fine. There's an upside and a downside to everything. And, there's so many times we think, oh my gosh, wish we could go back. Connection codes would have changed everything.
Yeah. I feel that so deeply. Yeah. Yes. Well, and that's what I love about the tool that y'all specifically created, because you made it so simple that anyone can use it. My 4-year-old uses it and is able to share and process. Someone that is extremely disordered, is going to be able to slow down and use this tool because it's so simple. Wes went to an entrepreneurial event last week and they handed him their core emotion, their emotion wheel. He was like, this is overwhelming to even look at. I can't even tell you what I'm feeling because there's 130 options. It's too much. And so to actually get it simple where little kids and the little kid and adults, our small self inside of our adult body can still access it and use it. And so this is our free tool. You can get it on our website. Dr. Glenn and Phyllis are going to demonstrate how we use it.
Yeah, I do have to put in a plug real quick because it really was Phyllis. I was working so diligently to figure all this stuff out. She was running her company at the time, and I'm just bringing her home research projects and data and statistics and books. And she's like, nope. I'm not reading that. I don't have time. I'm busy. And I don't claim to understand how the Spirit of God works, but it may have been a spirit thing because and she said, make it simple, really, really simple and quick. So that forced me to figure out, oh, okay, well, if she's going to give in 2 minutes with Phyllis, that's a gift. So, and I don't, know how it played out initially. I don't remember, but she's insistent. She's like, nope, it has to be really, really, really concise, which turns out that's the brain anyway. There's only 5 neural regions associated with emotion, but I didn't know that initially, but it forced me to narrow it down, and then come to find out, oh, that's the whole human setup anyway. Wow. Every emotion, we don't even know, we think there are thousands of emotions, but every emotion is either a level of, a degree of, or a hybrid of the core emotions. Well, shoot, that helps because I can memorize a list of 8 things. I just have a tough time memorizing 100 items.
Well, I know the one you're talking about, that wheel. And it is interesting, as good as we are at emotions, tuning in and expressing, I also look at that one and I get so overwhelmed, because God is the one who put this in our brain, right? We have a region in our brain that houses these emotions, and it's just 5 regions. And, pain is the one that we've broken down into sad, hurt, and lonely because they fire differently. But it's it is really simple. It's not that we made it simple. I think God made it simple, and we're just keeping it simple, and it works. And it's you feel the shift in your body, and it's just incredible. And like you say, this is something that can be taught to all ages, and it's so simple. So I love that. So I'll jump in and I'll do it first. How about that?
Yep.
Never know who to look at. Should I look at you in this moment?
Yeah.
Okay. Anger, when I got that text message last night, a lot of anger. Shame that my health goals get so off track when we are busy, which we are super busy right now. Guilt, I think guilt that I missed with you this morning. Let's see, fear with the things we're trying to accomplish right now. There's just been fear in, can we meet deadlines and can we be ready for all that's coming? Lonely. I just, my list is long and it's different than your list. Yours, you've got a long one too. Just feel lonely sometimes in the tasks and what I'm trying to get done, need to get done. Sad. What has been my sad this week? Just probably not having, I feel sad that I've not had enough time to show up with our kids, for our kids, as much as I've wanted to this week. Hurt. Felt a little bit of hurt, just a little, in your reaction this morning. Joy, tons of joy that we are going out of town this weekend. Love traveling with you. So much joy.
Wow, cool. Thank you. I love it. For me, hurt with various family members and just their handling of situations. I'm stunned and startled so often by it. A lot of sadness in that. It's like, how in the world could this even happen? Because I know who we are and what we've done.
Wow.
And somehow that's not recognized. And I'm kind of used to it because it's been most of my whole life, but there's sadness in that. Some loneliness, it's weird. I feel some loneliness about your loneliness because I know that you are handling so much.
Wow.
And I feel kind of at a loss of what to do, what I should be doing, what I should be focusing on.
Wow.
And it's also so hard to keep up with you because you're perpetual motion, true dynamo. Fear, just in it's kind of an exciting fear of what the future holds. This life is shifting for us, and we're on a new course, a new adventure that we've never done before. And I'm so thankful that I'm getting to do it with you because anything with you is fun and exciting. And then we don't know where we're going to end up in the near future. Guilt, so often just because you handle so much, and I'm like, dang, this woman just nails it. It's unbelievable. And I feel guilt that I can't keep up with you, and I can't, or I at least don't, match you step for step in so many different things. There's shame in that. Even this episode talking about that, it's like, oh my gosh, I get so lost from myself. And I love the phrase Tyra uses that, to find it in your relationships and in yourself, because that's where we have to start. And I just get bewildered by, my struggle so much of the time. Anger, back to the whole family stuff. What a mess. What an incredible mess. And, it's just so much pain. Probably a lot of it's secondary anger, just built on the pain of not being seen and heard and valued. Tons of joy about the stuff happening in our life. We are, I think we're kind of as psyched as we've been. I don't know if it's equal. Just what's coming down the pike, and we're so excited about just some shifts and changes, and it's a blast. We get to live life together is amazing, but I think where we're headed is even better. It's really cool.
Thank you.
I love it.
Yeah, thank you so much. And simply just getting that out of your body, sharing with what you're experiencing, hearing each other so you know what's happening in the other person's body is incredibly healthy for your brain and connecting in your relationship. And so this tool just has incredible benefits in how you show up in the world.
Yeah. And just circling back around, just to emphasize it, if I feel hurt by Phyllis in the morning and I don't process it, what effect is that going to have? I don't know. But then I'm rude to her that afternoon based on the hurt that happened that morning. She's like, why the heck is he being rude with me? I'm his wife. And now we're starting, we call it the cyclone. The cycle speeding up, comes a cyclone, and we totally lose each other. And again, this did not happen with us 3 times. It was so many thousands of times. And we still miss some, but not much. And I love hearing you and Wes talk about this. Like you can name your big misses.
Yeah.
We used to just live in that. We could name the last 3 hours the number of misses. And now it's so cool to be able to go, yeah, it was last June the 4th, we had a big miss. And it's like, what? That's a thing. And it really is.
Yeah. We made it 536 days without an argument.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. And because I knew the date of the last one, it was the day after his birthday. So it was easy for me to keep track. It was at his birthday dinner. So painful. And then we in May, which the one in May was pretty short. It only lasted less than an hour probably, but it still was painful enough to count. So then I did the math and I was like, dang it, we made it 536 days or something like that.
You say it so casually. I want our listeners to know this is freak territory. And I don't want people to be normal. Normal is pain. That's just freak territory. And most people would say, most marriage presenters, therapists, counselors, whatever, would be like, well, no, marriage is hard work and, and it does take effort. I get that. But yeah, you're just living in teamship and friendship and you throw dynamic sex on top of that and it gets slightly illegal. It's just so beautiful.
Yes. So thank you to our listeners for being here. And I hope that your takeaway this week is just the importance of the health of your brain in processing and understanding what happens to you on a psychological level when you ignore or don't process your emotion and the effect that can have over time. And then also the effect that it's having on this next generation, on not only your children, but your nieces and nephews, on the kids that you teach, on our society, and the effects that can have in the long term. So we can really tune in to each other and show up in a way that creates a healthy world, because we know that it is possible. And so if you already don't have access to this core emotion wheel, yes, you can get it on our website. There'll be a link in the show notes. You can download it at no cost, which I get mad at myself all the time because we should charge for this. I just want an easier lead magnet, for people to get for free, because this tool is just worth so much. And so definitely access that and share this episode. Share it with your mom friends, your teacher friends, because their psyches are in a struggle every day. Your dad friends, I'm not trying to leave men out of this. The pressure that the men are under is extreme, and their psyche is disordered, and we need them to show up in a way where they feel supported as well. So we do all of this because
you need this.
You deserve this. So let's do this.
Let's do this.